years that Kansas was a territory, it was caught up in the conflict created over slavery that enveloped the whole country. The time period was referred to as Bleeding Kansas due to the high amount of conflicts that resulted in bloodshed and murder. In Lynn County, Kansas, 5 miles northeast of a trading post, a man named Eli Snyder was having his home built. Snyder had the rank of captain when he was in the United States military, but now held the job of blacksmith. On May 19, 1858, Snyder journeyed to Sam Brown's saloon to purchase some whiskey for the men who were helping him build his home. As he entered the bar, he noticed 5 pro-slavery men in the saloon. After buying a pint of whiskey, he started to leave the saloon. As he was leaving, one of the pro-slavery men insulted him and threatened him with a 10-inch double-edged knife. Snyder motioned with his left hand and threw a punch with his right fist, knocking out his aggressor. Next, Captain Snyder took the knife and broke it over the doorstep. Then he walked into John Campbell's store and asked Mr. Campbell to lend him a revolver. After borrowing the revolver, Snyder went back to the saloon to confront the pro-slavery men once again. When he arrived back in the saloon, he asked the men if they were satisfied and left. Captain Montgomery heard about the incident and took 30 men to the saloon, where they emptied the saloon's whiskey and other alcohol into the street. After doing this, the men declared the saloon closed. The ruffians traveled 5 miles east to Jerry Jackson's home in Missouri to drink more whiskey. Jackson's son-in-law, Jack McHenry, lived 1.5 miles southeast and hosted a meeting for the group. During the meeting, there were 125 men present. The topic discussed was driving the Free State men out of the country, robbing them, pillaging, and also burning and laying waste to their communities. Hamilton was the leader and suggested murdering and assassinating them outright, saying, "Then we are done with them." Following the meeting, Hamilton hopped on his horse and along with 35 men rode off to murder. After the ruffians camped out for the night at an old vacant house at the river, they departed early in the morning for the trading post. When they arrived, they immediately began taking prisoners. Patrick Ross, John Campbell, and 2 boys were taken captive first. The kidnappers let the 2 boys go free, since the 2 were not yet of voting age. Following this, the ruffians captured one of the Stillwell men. Their next move was to abduct Preacher Reed. The hostages were William Hardgrove, Austin Amos Hall, Charles Snyder, William Culpeckers, William Robertson, and Asa Hardgrove. After all this, the group decided to take Captain Snyder next. They moved in from west and casually pretended they just wanted to talk to him. Eli Snyder was quickly approached by 3 men with guns pointing at him. 2 of the 3 were on horseback, and Snyder slapped the 2 horses on the side of the head, causing each horse to rear up and eject its rider. Snyder immediately attempted to grab the 3rd man by the coat collar, but it gave away, which allowed the ruffian to escape. Tom Jackson, a neighbor of Captain Snyder's, tried to take Snyder's gun from inside his shop, but Snyder headed him off. From inside his shop, Snyder told the men to lower their weapons, but they did not do so. At this point, Captain Snyder ran from the shop to his house and encountered 7 men along the way. He shot and killed 1 and was wounded by 5 bullets. A 6th bullet passed under his chin and shaved off some of his hairs. He then fired 7 buckshots into Hamilton. Hamilton barely survived and sent one of his men for backup. Snyder's son shot and killed the man Hamilton sent for backup. The rest of the group fled. After hiding in the brush, Snyder heard many gunshots and dying men moaning. The brush was very thick, and Snyder prepared to fire on an approaching man, since Snyder did not yet know that Hamilton's men had already taken prisoners. The captain waited to see who was coming towards him before he fired, and saw that it was Austin Hall. Hall told Snyder of the execution of all the other prisoners. When they returned to the site where the execution took place, 5 other survivors were found. 5 of the prisoners were dead, but 6 had survived, which included Austin Hall. The other 5 survivors were Amos Hall, William and Asa Hardgrove, Elder Reed, and Charles Snyder. Unfortunately, the ruffians escaped back to Missouri, and all but one were never punished for their crimes. The one who was punished was William Griffith of Bates County, Missouri. In the spring of 1863, Griffith was arrested and hung on October of 1863. The murders shocked the country and also became a crucial event in Bleeding Kansas. In the months that followed, abolitionist John Brown came and constructed a 2-story fortified cabin near the site of the massacre. The fort never saw any action, though, and before John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry, he gave the fort to a friend of his. The effect this had on the events that occurred shortly afterwards can be seen in retrospect. The Civil War followed a few years later, and it was largely fought to abolish slavery, even though it was initially fought to preserve the Union. It cannot be stressed enough that murdering innocent people to try and spread slavery made many free state supporters recognize that the time for changing the nation was upon them. In conclusion, the Marias des Cygnes massacre provided the country with an example of what pro-slavery men were willing to do to defend slavery.